like that. And but when people heard about it, I think they transplanted that image of the craziness that happens in the hospital and put it at home.
Yes.
And it's like, that's
and
not...
just imagine, yeah.
And just imagine, how can you deal with that chaos at home? But
right.
that's not what a home birth is like. There isn't chaos. It's peaceful, it's quiet, it's calm.
I think the other thing that's amazing, because you know, I saw your video, was the fact that the whole family was there. So this was your third, and really when you're welcoming a new baby, it's a family experience.
Absolutely.
So how did that change your family?
I'm very much a big supporter of kids being at birth, because really back in the day, this is kind of partly how we've gotten to where we are in our culture. Back in the day, we would have seen births growing up as women, young women. We would have seen our moms or our cousins or sisters or aunts. We would have seen birth.
Yes. And
it's been taken out of the community and out of the social structure of families and put into the hospital, and now it's like all private, and nobody knows what happens when they're going into it for themselves. So they've never been to a birth, they've never seen a birth, other than what we've seen on TV. So that creates part of that fear factor of, you know, the fear of the unknown. I don't know what's going to happen when I go in there. And so I'm very much a big fan of children experiencing birth as just a normal part of life. And
agreed, yes.
My kids have all been to births. He's actually already been to 2 births.
And he's only 5 months old.
And he's only 5 months old, yeah. And so they've been at their siblings' births, and I think that's really special and important for them.
It is.
And
it really helps them feel empowered.
Yeah, and to me, it's not my baby; it's our baby. It's you know, it's part of the family. And my younger sister's actually 9 years younger than me, and I remember the day that my mom went into labor, and her water broke at home, and then they're like, "Okay, get ready for school," and I'm like, what are you talking about? we're having a baby today. And to me, it was we were having a baby.
Yes, I'm not going to school.
Yeah, like, how can I go to school? We're having a baby, right? But we had to go to school, and she went to the hospital and did the whole, you know, the whole thing. And to me, it was just like, but why aren't we going to be there? And so I felt that it was important for our kids to be there and part of the process. And this is their baby too. It's their sibling. And
now, as we were just chit-chatting, Dr. Jacqueline asked you a question, which we'd love to have you answer on air. So, Dr. Jacqueline?
So what was your motivation for streaming the birth live?
It's kind of started with my second birth, which was a home birth, like all my births have been. And it was a very quiet, peaceful, calm birth. It was essentially silent through my whole labor until there were some pushing sounds at the end, and flew my baby. And
we all know that.
which you can watch online too. But my mom was there, and she watched the video of the birth afterwards, and she was like, can I take this and show it to my friends and show it to your cousins? Because she's like, people need to see this.
Yes. And
that it kind of started from there, because she was like, people need to see this. People need to see that this is what birth can be like. And the way that, the one word that she had used describing birth to me in terms of her experience was humiliating. And that just killed me. I'm like, wow. And because my experience has been the complete opposite, where it's empowering and just amazing and wonderful, and I'd love to do it over again, you know?
Goosebumps.
And so when, like, that was such a turning point for her in terms of experiencing birth, like, because now she got to experience the other side of birth and this empowering experience, and she wanted people to see it. And then so when I was pregnant with him, I was like, oh, you know, how can I let people see this? And it also partly stemmed from somebody had asked a question on Facebook: should a medical student be allowed to come to a home birth to see what a home birth is like? Because it's so very different than a hospital birth. And that's when I made the final decision. I'm like, yes, they can come to mine, just not in my house. They can watch it online, you know? And I was like, yeah, people need to see this. People need to be invited into home births. Because if we all have these beautiful births privately at home, then nobody knows that there's an alternative. And this way I just felt this way we can open up my home so that people can be invited into a home birth and see what the potential is and see that they can do it, and it doesn't have to be scary. And
it's really interesting how birthing process is coming back in a circle. You know, we started out with being supported by midwives and you know, doula-like people, and then we went very medicalized, and we still are to a degree, but now we have options where we have the ability to have a midwife, to have a doula, and potentially birth at home. What about the safety factor? Because there's going to be lots of people out there saying it's not safe, it's not safe.
Right, and that would be another one of the controversy things that came up, because there's the perception that the hospital is the safest place to give birth.
Yes.
And if you actually look at the studies, there's a study in the British Medical Journal, and they evaluated low-risk women planning home births versus low-risk women planning hospital births. And the outcomes in terms of mortality were the same, regardless if it was a home or a hospital birth, but the intervention rates were significantly less at home. And the conclusion was that it was just as safe, if not safer, to give birth at home, because the risk of mom and baby dying doesn't change, but the risk of the side effects of all the other interventions
Yes.
is significant when you're talking about episiotomies and vacuum extraction, forceps, epidurals, and induction.
And as a chiropractor, you're managing all those things in terms of the effects that it's having on the children after
Absolutely.
having ear infections and all the things that potentially can be associated with that.
Absolutely, and that's how I got started with this whole birth thing. So coming full circle again, my first exposure to birth was seeing the birth trauma that's being done to babies' necks on the way out with the medicalized system of birth. And not to say that it has to happen that way, but
No,
it's just
yes.
it's common. And seeing that, and then being the door open to the alternative, and seeing that babies can be born just so peacefully and gently. So.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing this information, and I think more women do need to see your video. Dr. Jacqueline, excellent information, and you're a great inspiration with respect to nutrition, and we feel very honored to have both of you experts here today. So for our Revivelife quiz, do pickles top the list for the most craved food while being pregnant? No, it's actually carbohydrates. Can you drink any tea while pregnant as long as it's herbal? Well, no. Again, you want to check with your healthcare team. And lastly, it's important not to lift anything heavy while pregnant. That's true. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We'll see you next time. I'm naturopathic Dr. Joelle.